Militarily Speaking, episode 61, The Grateful Nation Project.
This episode, we talk with Craig Du Mez, president and founder of the Grateful Nation Project.
Welcome to Militarily Speaking, brought to you by Armed Forces Bank. This is Tom McLean and Jodi Vickery. I'm the regional military executive for Armed Forces Bank, and Jodi does a lot. She's the executive vice president, director of consumer banking, and we are just grateful. I'm going to use grateful a lot during this thing. Grateful to have you on the team.
Yeah.
And as a co-host.
I bet
you've been trying to get out of this for a long time, though.
That is not true. That is not true. Highlight of my day. Welcome to our show again. I'm going to move past the Tom part of this. We're excited to have you listening and learning about our guest, Craig Du Mez with the Grateful Nation Project. Before we get started, though, Craig, I want to share a little bit with our audience about you. Craig Du Mez is the president and founder of the Grateful Nation Project, a nonprofit organization that gathers, preserves, and shares the stories of those who gave the last full measure of devotion for our freedom. The organization creates hero cards and online biographies for U.S. military service members from the Revolutionary War to the present day who lost their lives while serving the country. They are bringing these hero stories to schools and homes nationwide. Craig grew up in a small town in eastern Wisconsin and now lives in suburban Milwaukee with his wife, Joanne. The two have been blessed with 5 children, all grown, and 6 grandchildren, which I bet you enjoy immensely and get to spoil. Yes?
Yes.
Definitely. So welcome, Craig. It's an honor to have you on our show, and thanks for being with us today.
Well, thank you. The honor is mine. I really appreciate you giving some attention to our project and more importantly to these heroes.
No, happy to do that, and we're excited to hear about it.
Time out. I want to go to Wisconsin for a minute.
Okay.
Can I talk to you about Wisconsin?
Absolutely.
It's not on our list of questions, but I grew up in the south side of Chicago, but was born in Racine, Wisconsin.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
I'm a diehard Cub fan. I want to make sure you're not a Brewers fan.
Ooh, I have to tell the truth, right?
Yeah, well, Jodi
we should
does
swear
it,
people in for the podcast. We should have an oath of podcast that we render.
Well, yeah. I can say that I'm not diehard. I'm kind of fair weather. When they're doing well, I pay close attention.
So you're paying close attention today because they're in first place, right?
Right.
And you're going to tell me
Where are the Cubs at?
Stop it. You're going to tell me you're a Packers fan too, right?
Yes, very much so. That would be qualified as diehard, yes.
Do you own a cheese head?
I was going to ask that.
No, I don't.
Because if you did, we were going to need you to go put it on.
Craig's a fake fan if he doesn't have a cheese head, right?
Well, we did get them for our grandchildren.
Awesome.
All right, that qualifies.
That's awesome. That's probably a cute picture.
Let's see. The only other thing is, do you know where Phelps, Wisconsin is?
I have heard of it, but I couldn't.
Eagle River, Rhinelander.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
That was my cabin in the woods when I was growing up.
A beautiful area.
Which explains why I'm like I am.
There are so many things that I could say right now, and I'm not going to.
Those are the best years of my life.
I'm going to reel this back in.
Next to the podcast with Jodi.
I got all the way to welcoming you, Craig, before Tom went off the rails. So thank you. And now you know what you're in for. Again, welcome to the show. We'd love for you to talk to our audience a little bit at big picture. Tell them a little bit about your organization. And then I think Tom and I will just probably have a million questions for you as we go on some more detailed level things.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, the Grateful Nation Project is a nonprofit organization, and we're funded by donations and through the sale of hero cards to schools and homes and to veterans or civic organizations. If I could, I'll just give the URL out right now in case people want to follow along, but gratefulnation.us, not .com, not .org, .us. You can go there, or herocards.us. They both take you to the same place.
Perfect.
Excellent.
And what we're trying to do is really stated there in the organization's name, Grateful Nation. We create hero cards and online biographies for any U.S. service member from the Revolutionary War to the present day who lost their life while they were serving their country. And we're bringing these heroes' stories to schools and to homes nationwide.
That's awesome. That way they're never forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
I think, again, going back to Grateful, we talked before we started recording this about how you came to us, how we found you. But Krista Simpson-Anderson from The Unquiet Professional, who we had as a guest several episodes ago, but she brought you to the forefront. I think, Krista, if I'm not mistaken, is now part of your organization on the board as a secretary?
Yes, she's on our board of directors, and she's just a very valuable resource. She gives us that Gold Star spouse perspective. That's very important to what we do.
We loved our conversation with her too. So I appreciate her making that introduction. I'm sure she'll listen to this podcast too at some point and share her thoughts as well. Let's jump right in. So we're going to talk a little bit more about those hero cards, right? Honoring those who gave that last full measure of devotion. But do you want to talk more specifically about hero cards? And I think I won't go too tangential on you, Jodi, today, but I think we're going to talk about maybe how you market, how you promote, how they're used in the schools, that type of thing. But we'll sort of make that a natural conversation. But talk more about the hero cards themselves. You mentioned earlier that you sell those. So
Right.
How's that work?
Yeah, we're introducing these heroes to Americans in a format that's, I think, a bit more approachable and appealing than a history book tends to be, at least for most people, especially young people. And the cards are slightly larger than baseball cards. Each one features a real hero's image on the front and a few details about their life and service on the back. And then also on the back in the lower corner, you'll find a hero number that can be used to learn more about that individual online. People often compare our hero cards to baseball cards, and they're similar in format, but there's a couple of important differences. One is that connection to the online bio that allows people to dig deeper into that hero's story. But also, we're very intentional about never referring to these as trading cards. Families of the fallen heroes don't like the idea of their loved one being traded. So instead, we refer to them as collector cards. With baseball or Pokemon cards, it's really the rarity of a given card that increases its value over the others. And to prevent that and to kind of approach this with more dignity and respect for the person, we're always going to have every hero's card available. That makes it easy to build your own library of true American heroes and to appreciate them as real people who sacrificed everything so we could be free.
That's definitely true. And I could easily see this being great for a teacher or instructor to use in a classroom,
Right.
probably at various ages.
Yeah.
I would think
Mm-hmm.
something more hands-on for kids, like you said, than a textbook might be.
Sure. And some of our kids are in their 90s.
I like that because I just had a milestone birthday, so I'm going to call myself a kid from here on out with Craig's permission.
You'll never be 30 again. Yeah.
Yeah, well, whatever age I am is the new 30. So you mentioned this, you create the online biographies too for the service members that have fallen,
Sure.
again, all the way from Revolutionary War to present day. Can you talk about the different types of the depth of information that you're able to go into online? Maybe how do you learn that information to get it out on the website? And how is that online resource used in schools?
Sure. I should start by pointing out that what these are not. They're not obituaries. We're honoring these heroes by trying to present them as they were, real people with real families. Although each of the stories does end with an account of how they were lost, we begin each story with where they came from, what were they like as a person, what did they do in school, did they have a job, where did their military service take them, what was going on at the time they served. I would like to point out that the bios, we're very deliberate about keeping them brief, but also providing easy ways for people to dig deeper as they become more interested. So in the stories, we don't assume that the reader, especially with young readers, would be familiar with terms like Pearl Harbor or Navy SEAL or even 9/11 or Al-Qaeda. So when you come across a term like that in a story, it's a link to a reliable source explaining what that is. So you can click and go to the History Channel's explanation or the National Archives or National World War II Museum, some trusted source like that. And if a person only looks at the hero card and goes no further, that's okay. At least they've had some introduction to a person who sacrificed everything for our freedom. If they continue on to the online bio, even better, they really can keep digging further as their interest is piqued. And I think the second part of your question was about
how do you see schools engaging with this in the classroom, whether it's the hero cards themselves or the online biography portion?
Sure, and that really varies. I'm really loving the feedback and the creativity that we are getting back from educators. We designed this to be very flexible, so it can be a very low effort approach for a one-off event, like having Legion or VFW members or surviving families hand out the hero cards at an assembly for Veterans Day or the lead up to Memorial Day, or really anytime. Some schools are using the project as a supplement in their history and social studies curriculum. they'll have students find 3 facts about their hero that aren't found in our online story. And we provide source links at the end of each story for that. Some schools have students give a full presentation about their hero to the class or to an all-school assembly. We have some implementation suggestions on our website. At the top of every page, there's a link that says for schools. So if you go there, you can see a kind of from easy to more robust implementation suggestions for schools.
Oh, I love that. I like you're almost giving them almost a mini lesson plan. It sounds like if, instructors, teachers want to take advantage of that.
Right.
Taking it from I would think maybe more abstract in the textbook down to these are real people that were affected.
Right.
And also the fact that they're sort of being teased a little bit about somebody, and then they get to go on their own scavenger hunt, if you will, to go find out more details because they're passionate about finding out more about the story.
Well, and one bit of feedback that we got back that I really like, and we didn't plan this, but some of the teachers are telling us that the first thing a student does when they get their hero and they look into them a little bit is they run over to their buddy and show them their hero. And then their buddy shows them their hero. So it's kind of a peer-to-peer learning thing, which to me is a lot better than an older adult at the front of a room kind of shaking a book at you and saying, you need to learn this.
So Craig, how big is the library, if you will? Like, is it for every veteran, everybody that served from the Revolutionary War, where you have access to all those names, or are you limited?
Sure. We get that question a lot. We're focusing on those who were lost while in U.S. military service. And we draw that line, and it really doesn't matter how they were lost, whether in combat or a training accident, Spanish flu, or even suicide. If they were serving in the military when they lost their life, we'll do a hero card and story on them. Now, that's not to say that those are the only heroes that are out there. To my thinking, anybody who put on the uniform is a hero. Whether they were drafted or enlisted, they answered the call knowing that it could cost them their life. But by focusing on those we lost, and like you said, this is from Revolutionary War to the present day, we have between 1.2 and 1.3 million stories to do. And obviously many of those are lost to history, but we still have our work cut out for us before we could even think about expanding to include all veterans. All of them are heroes for sure, but our mission is to call attention specifically to those who gave the last full measure of devotion.
So 1.2 to 1. That's a big number. That's a lot of stories to tell.
Right.
So even as you had this idea, I think you said 4 years ago, it was an idea and it's evolved to what it is today as the nonprofit organization. How did you even decide where to start? How do you choose the heroes? How does that process work? It seems like, you eat an elephant one bite at a time, I guess, but
boil the ocean.
That's exactly it.
Try to think of the right phrase.
Right. Well, boil the ocean too.
Boil the ocean. Yeah, that's a good one.
And the way I like to think of it is we start on a story, we get it right, and then we move to another one. And it's not going to be completed in our lifetimes. I know that, but every story we add is another hero that's being honored. So for how we choose the heroes, that first criterion is that they have to have lost their life while serving. On our website, at the top of every page, you'll find a Submit a Hero link. And anyone can submit a fallen service member. There's no charge to have us do the research or develop that story. We get a lot of submissions from family members and also from people who served with a given hero. For the most part, we'll work on the stories in the order that they come to us, but there are a couple of exceptions. If a hero is submitted by an immediate family member, we put those to the front of the line. It's because it's not just the hero who paid a very high cost for our freedom. The surviving families are living with that sacrifice for the rest of their lives. It's important that they know that we're a grateful nation. So, we always, the way that it started is my colleague Dale Koyenga was a Wisconsin state senator and also an Iraq veteran. He's currently a lieutenant colonel, and he had to walk in Memorial Day parades as part of his politician gig. He's not really a politician, but he did become a Wisconsin senator. And in that Memorial Day parade, he would hand out Milwaukee Brewer schedules or candy or something like that. And as a veteran, he lost people that he served with. And it was kind of troubling him that Memorial Day became sort of a kickoff to summer. And, I get why. It's the end of the school year, but it just kind of became a weekend to throw some brats on the grill and throw back a cold beer and hang out with friends. Nothing wrong with that, but he wanted to emphasize the meaning of the day. My background is in print and print technology, so we attend the same church. He came to me and said, I'd really like to hand out cards of heroes that we lost. How hard would that be to do? So we started with just doing this for him in a parade, and a couple of years later, I came back at him and said, what if we added their stories online and we made this bigger than just one politician in a parade? And he had been thinking the same thing. So that's how we sort of got started. And, for us, myself included, people like to say never forget, and especially around Memorial Day. It's one thing to say it, but it's another thing entirely to the surviving families to know that after we're gone, their loved one won't be just a name on a headstone or a line in a military record. Their loved one's story will be preserved and introduced to people across the country, and that sacrifice won't be forgotten. So as these stories come to us, we will change the order up a bit just to ensure that we provide some variety in terms of military branches, different eras, different parts of the country, and so on. We want to paint that picture of all these heroes being connected in the same great cause. And they came from all walks of life, rural, urban, black, white, brown, female, male, wealthy, poor. That's an important thing to point out as part of our American story, especially to kids. One other thing I probably should point out, for any recent loss post-Vietnam era, we want to make sure to have that hero's family on board. We don't want to surprise anyone or assume that they'd like to have their loved one included. So if you served with someone or someone and you submit them, we will ask for your help in connecting us with the family before we publish anything about that hero.
That all makes sense.
But you said that just started for post-Vietnam, right, going forward?
Yeah, there's no hard and fast rule, but that's, post-Vietnam era. Okay. If you go back further than that, it can be hard to find family.
Say people that would probably have somebody that's
first-hand knowledge,
immediate family still alive. And,
right. And honestly, if we can find the family of any era, we'll certainly work with them and want to make sure they're on board with it.
How far? This is not on our. I'm going off script, and I never.
You've learned 61
but now I'm intrigued.
Later.
So, what is the oldest story where you were able to be in contact with present day relatives or living family members?
That's a good one.
See, at least my tangents are related.
I've probably had people submit Revolutionary War heroes that were distant relatives. That the one that comes to mind, because it happened last week, was Daniel Hawke, who was from Ireland, and he was the first soldier killed in the Civil War. So we did his card and his story, and I posted on social media. And a week later, I got an email from a Martin Hawke in the UK, and he said the Hawke family is from Tipperary, Ireland, and they're very proud of. Daniel came to the country because of the potato famine and joined the U.S. military. But the family back in Tipperary is very proud of their relatives who came to America and fought with our military. And so he asked if he could get a couple of cards to bring back to Daniel Hawke's hometown and show the remaining family members that we had done this.
That's very cool. It's very cool.
He just answered a future question about one of his most favorite stories in his time.
But see, at least when I went off script, it was like related to the topic at hand.
Let's chalk it up for the first time that's ever happened for you. But so branding awareness, I think Jodi and I, we struggle with that a little bit, not for our personalities, but just for Armed Forces Bank. Armed Forces Bank dwarfs in comparison to a USA or Navy Federal or Pentagon Fed. I would think that your organization, you have to come up with brand awareness or marketing strategies or ways to build that brand so that people know what you do, how you do such great work. But what are some of your tactics or methods or strategies for getting the word out there beside this podcast?
Well, I would say this podcast is one of the best things we have going, especially when you take donations. You don't want to be spending too many donated dollars on awareness building. We have to do it. For us, social media is really important. And I've done everything from run around before a Memorial Day parade and write our URL all over the sidewalk with sidewalk chalk.
I'm stealing that one.
That's what we call grassroots marketing.
Right. I call it poor man's low-level marketing. But yeah, we've done that. We try to connect to different veterans organizations. We had one 12-card pack that we did in conjunction with Folds of Honor.
Oh, nice.
And so we featured 30 heroes whose children had received Folds of Honor scholarships. And so those kind of relationships help us a lot. We have a few museums that we've gotten our cards into their gift shops. Being honest, we need to do a lot more. We're not out there very, very prominently, but podcasts like this really help a lot.
You mentioned Folds of Honor. Yeah, the 13. That 13 symbolizes something pretty cool. And we recently had Rocky Sickman on as a guest. You may or may not know that name, as a hostage for 444 days during the Iran crisis. And we also had Folds of Honor in a separate podcast too. So
yeah, they do great work.
They do.
Yes, they do.
Man. It's great to find them too.
That's not even 6 degrees of separation.
That was beyond
like
Kevin
0.5 degrees.
So a day in the life for you, what does a typical day look like for you, Craig, if it comes down to working probably 24/7 on this business, but what's it look like for you?
Mostly it's filled with research, communicating with Gold Star and surviving families, writing, photo restoration, and the like. On the research end, it's important to chase down and verify all the story details because these are going into schools. And more importantly, I think we owe it to these heroes to get their story right.
Right.
One of the more rewarding things that I get to do is sort of rescue faded or damaged photos. And sometimes there's enough left in the original photo that we can take it and make it look like it was taken yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Then I offer that to the family, and it's very meaningful for them. Quite often we'll have families who are very touched that someone cares. Someone they don't know is grateful to them, to their loved one, and goes to the effort of doing something tangible to honor them. A lot of my time is spent communicating with schools, introducing the Grateful Nation Project, answering their questions. It's not really that difficult to find an educator or an administrator who gets excited about the project. But for most schools, adding something like this requires school board or curriculum committee approval, or maybe more than one teacher to get it approved. So it can take a few calls, some online meetings, or even in-person visits to get the Grateful Nation Project into a single school.
I think the add-on to the history class, if you will, is an easy sell to some degree, but still, you're right. There's a little bit of bureaucracy to get it through the curriculum and then have them vet the content and make sure that it meets the standards. And,
right.
But it's a great way to package up a story of an organization that's doing that such good work.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason that we made it so flexible, so that if a school has their curriculum year all planned out and they don't have room to add anything, you could still do the one-off events if you have an assembly for Veterans Day or Memorial Day. And it's a pretty low effort way to get in.
Yeah, that makes sense. A lot of perseverance wrapped up in that, I think. When we mentioned your websites earlier, we want to get those in again now and maybe again at the end. But we've got gratefulnation.us or herocards.us. Both go to the same place, you said.
That's right.
But when they visit either site, they can clearly see the purpose of the organization spelled out as educate, instill gratitude, and honor the fallen. I think you shared a little bit about the heart of that mission or purpose as we've talked already, but are there things that you would add to the mix to help our audience understand kind of the foundation of why you do what you do?
Sure. There's two parts to that, I think. A survey came out in late 2022, early 2023 that showed that patriotism was in sharp decline. And it got to a point where I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but it was something like baby boom generation, when they answered the question, how proud are you to be an American? It was something like 78%. And then each succeeding generation, that number went down until you get to Gen Z adults, where they're only 16%. And I am sure about that number. Wow. 16% of Gen Z adults are proud to be Americans. So, when I first saw that, you can either shake your head and complain about it, or you can do something about it. And so we've kind of got started at the same time that the 1619 project and things like that were getting going. And we thought we have to get a different message into schools. And part of it is that so many Americans today have no real direct connection to people who serve in the military. And in some ways, that's really a good thing. Those who served in the past and those who are serving today have been so effective in giving the rest of us freedom and peace that the need for every family to send someone into harm's way isn't as widespread as it's been in the past. I just, growing up in a small town in rural Wisconsin during the Vietnam era, as a boy, I knew a lot of people who served. People I knew getting out of high school were being drafted or were enlisting. Most of my uncles served in the Korean conflict. A lot of grandparents served in World War II. Military service was all around us, really, and it touched everyone in a direct way. Now that, thank God, that's not as widespread, the downside to that is that Americans can be oblivious to what was done for us and about those who are out there right now putting their lives on the line so we can be free. And we found that even the best history or social studies curricula that cover war or the military tend to do it in terms of the maps, the politics, the strategies, the generals and such. But they don't do a lot to introduce students to the real people who fought those wars or to the families who sacrificed so much. So that's really our hope, to kind of bring patriotism back into the classroom, to educate people about someone who did something selfless for you, even though they never met you. So we're hoping that will generate gratitude, produce a truly grateful nation, and that it'll honor those who gave the last full measure of devotion by not letting their memory fade away over time.
I love that answer.
It's almost like he knew how to answer that question. You know,
He's probably thought about it.
I want to know if you were the architect behind those three subsets within the purpose, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
All right, you're my hero. So donations, right? Go to both websites. There's a donate button or there's an option.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell our audience what you do with the donations, how you use those dollars that come to your organization.
Well, we're just getting started, so we don't have a building, we don't have paid employees. We use donated funds to print and package and ship the hero cards to schools and to individuals, to homes. If your listeners do click on that donate button, they'll see different giving levels to sponsor a certain number of students. Basically, $1 puts one hero card and story into the hands of one student. If you choose, for instance, the $13 Patriot level, that sponsors 13 students getting hero cards and learning about true heroes. One other thing we do with donated funds is that for the immediate families of the fallen, they can request 100 hero cards of their loved one, and we send those to them at no charge. They'll get enough to share with other family members or with their local school district or however they want to use them. Donations cover that cost as well. So you can sponsor a Gold Star or surviving family for a $100 donation, and it means a lot to them. We also need to spread the word about the Grateful Nation Project, so a small amount does go toward community outreach, like getting a table at education events, sending samples out to schools, costs like that.
Kind of piggybacking on that a little bit, aside from being able to donate and provide financial support, are there ways that people can volunteer to support the organization if they're willing to put some of their own, time?
So
and
you're talking boots on the ground,
boots
right?
on the ground, time and energy into it. Yeah, there you go.
I got that in there,
There
Craig.
you go.
Yeah.
I love that question. I love the donations question also.
Yeah.
Yes, they're both good and important.
Right. Now, by far, the two things we need most are funding and exposure. So I'll focus any volunteer efforts on those two things, starting with the easiest. It seems like everybody tells you to do this, but following us on social media and sharing our posts is way more powerful than you might think. As a nonprofit, we don't want to spend too many donated dollars on advertising or awareness building. Social media is sitting right there. It's free to use, and it requires almost no time or effort. Most of our posts are about individual heroes. So you can help us enormously by just clicking like or sharing our posts. That gives us some free exposure to all the people in your network. And it's nearly an effortless way to introduce these heroes to a lot of Americans really quickly. So don't just follow and read our posts, take action by liking and sharing. It's just a couple of clicks and that's all. but the impact can be huge. If you want to find our social media platforms, you can see them at the bottom of any page on our website. And I don't know, of all the things that end up going viral on social media, why don't we make something very worthwhile go viral for a change?
Because there's a lot of the not worthwhile things for sure.
Time consumptive too. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and then if you'd like to do more, we really do need help reaching out to schools and getting them to bring the Grateful Nation project to their students. Everybody lives in a school district or knows a homeschool association. Most of them haven't heard about us. So if you could familiarize yourself with the For Schools section on the website, that link is also at the top of every page. It's just For Schools. Then contact any history or social studies teacher in your local area. You can talk to school boards, administrators, curriculum committees. Just become an advocate. We need those boots on the ground, as you say, to do the groundwork for us. If you live in a community, it carries a lot more weight with your school than if they get a call from a nonprofit they've never heard of.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, we also need help reaching out to veterans organizations, civic organizations. If you're a member of the American Legion or VFW, Vietnam Veterans for America, and the like, those organizations like to sponsor their local schools, or they'll hand out the cards at their own events. Same for Kiwanis or Optimist clubs and such. If you're a member or could otherwise introduce the Grateful Nation Project to them, we can get this thing rolling out into a lot more communities.
All good ways to be involved.
I know. He threw in a couple curveballs there. Those are some good ones.
Yeah.
just not even thinking about the local organizations that could be ambassadors for you as well, like that.
Good. And honestly, it's an easy sell. It's just that we need the people to do it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm going to save our audience some time about, like, what do people say about you, right? So I pulled up a couple of reviews about the Grateful Nation Project. Okay, Craig?
Sure.
It was an amazing experience. It was really powerful. It was transformative. The project made for meaningful interaction between our local veterans and students. We introduced this during the last 2 to 3 weeks of the school year, and it was the most engaged they were in those 2 to 3 weeks. So note to teachers, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Keep your students engaged.
Especially in the last 2 to 3 weeks of the school year.
Our students have been taught American history, but teaching it personally changed their perspective. And then one final one is, we use the hero cards in our history classes. Love the idea, love the concept. So a lot of good feedback, a lot of good comments.
Yeah, a lot. I had one teacher this last week tell me that he did this the hour before lunch, and his students were so engaged that they didn't want to leave for lunch. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
No,
because usually lunch and recess are their two favorite subjects.
And the last bell of the day.
Yeah, right. Yeah, lunch, recess, and PE class. In that
Straight
order
A.
for my kids, right? Yeah. No, that is really good feedback. You had shared the story a little bit ago on my tangential question about the Hawk family in the Revolutionary War, but are there any other stories that you think, or a story that you think would be great to share with our audience, just to show the impact of what you're doing on a different kind of a personal level? I mean, the cards themselves are a personal touch, but I always love a good story.
Sure. Since you're doing me the kindness of giving us some exposure, I'll give your podcast a little bit of exposure and focus on.
Wait, moment of silence. Hang on. Everybody needs to absorb that. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Floor is yours, Craig.
No, as you mentioned, you had Krista Simpson Anderson on one of your previous episodes, and she has her own nonprofit called The Unquiet Professional. So her husband, Staff Sergeant Mike Simpson, is one of our featured heroes. If you go to herocards.us and then /hero140, you'll see his story there. He came from a military family, and like most military families, moved around as his father's assignments dictated. Mike graduated from high school in 2001, which is the same year that the terrorists attacked the World Trade Center and the Pentagon on September 11th. He spent a couple of years at Texas A&M, and then, like many young people at the time, he felt strongly about serving his country in its time of need. He joined the Army as an infantryman in 2003 and served in Operation Iraqi Freedom. When he came back to the U.S., Mike volunteered and completed the Special Forces qualification course at Fort Bragg, and he became a Green Beret. Later, he was deployed to Afghanistan, and He was lost while maneuvering on an ATV in a combat operation when he hit a pressure plate IED. And now that I just read off a very short basic facts kind of description, but even in the longer story that's online, we can't possibly capture everything that Mike Simpson was about. But I would encourage everyone to go to Hero 140 and just read that account. We include some details about his childhood, what kind of father he was, what kind of man he was. And you'll get a good feel for the type of stories that we're putting together if you look at that one.
Absolutely, we'll do that.
Yeah, makes me want to go right now. I mean, it's pretty compelling stuff when you talk about each hero. Like you said, one hero at a time, right? And
right.
Every story is so important. Get the facts right and let them live forever. And the family appreciates that, I know, and any relative does.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting to the end, Craig, believe it or not, 3.5 hours later. You covered a lot of ground, but it was so detailed and so thorough and so explanatory that I don't know if there's any other information you want to share or would like our audience to hear as we widen this down. And by the way, after this, we're going to do a little bit of a military minute game that we play. So we won't hold you here for another
He was warned.
30 minutes. But yes. So yeah, anything else you want to lead? But I mean, the two websites you should say again before we close this down.
Yeah, and it is one website, but two URLs will take you to the same place. Gratefulnation.us and herocards.us. And I guess the only thing I would add is that today we've talked a lot about schools and getting these into students' hands. It doesn't have to be a school. If you've got kids, if you've got grandkids, if you coach a soccer team, these are really good. They come in 12-card packs, and they're very inexpensive and meaningful things that you can give to kids or adults. If you know a veteran, we know a lot of veterans that like to get these, and it sends a message to them too that someone cares. So it's not only for schools. That is our primary objective, but they're good for everybody.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Very good point. So we are actually going to now transition, before Tom has any other random things to talk about, to the Military Minute. It is a fun, endearing little game we like to play. And we'll start with last episode's question. So if you knew this one, you could answer it. It would be kind of a weird thing to know, just like randomly.
No, Craig's going to know. He's a historian.
I know, but
here's the question.
Our last guest was from the Red Cross. And so the question was, who was the founder of the American Red Cross and in what year did that take place?
Craig?
Well, I'm not going to say that I know for certain, but let's say Florence Nightingale. That's my best guess.
Ooh,
that's a pretty good guess. It's not right, but it's really great. It's a very, very intelligent sounding guess.
Can you do the wah-wah noise when you...
We'll have to pipe that in. Dale's on that.
Wow.
It was founded by Clara Barton in 1881.
See?
If you would have got that right, I so wanted to be on your team for Trivial Pursuit, because that... with the little brown history category, that would have been a winner. But this week's Military Minutes, so you might know this one, but we're going to ask you not to answer it because we're going to let our audience have some fun with it. It is about the Revolutionary War and who said the following after being captured by the British Army: "I only regret that I have but one life to give for my country." So don't say it, but do you know the answer?
I do.
It rhymes with...
No hints. See, we need to hang out with smart people like Craig more often. So if you are listening and you either got the Clara Barton answer right from last episode, watch for your name to hit our social media and you could be selected as the winner. You watch for your name to be dropped and you will win $50 for yourself and $50 to a charity of your choice. And if you know the answer to this week's question, who said, "I only regret that I have but one life to give for my country," drop your answer in the comments and you too could be selected to win $50 for yourself and $50 for a charity of your choice. You could use that to purchase hero cards, which would be an awesome use of those funds. Yes, I love that idea very much. Gift them to others. And thank you again, Craig, for spending some time with us today. And one last time, I do want to point folks to herocards.us or gratefulnation.us.
I really appreciate you having us on, and it's been a real honor to talk with you. You can edit this out, but if people want a hint about the answer, the person does have a hero card.
Whoa. They're going to have to do a lot of
extra credit
Searching.
if you find the hero card and the,
The number. Whoa.
and include it in your answer audience. So yes.
We'd throw in another $5 gift card for that, wouldn't we?
I'm just throwing money around like it's making it rain, Tom.
So if you enjoyed today's episode as much as Craig did, go out to afbank.com and subscribe to the show. Also, make sure to rate us, leave us a comment on your favorite podcast platform, which happens to be either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. So we will be out there in a few weeks. Can't wait to share this with our audience, Craig. Well done.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Copyright Armed Forces Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. All non-Armed Forces Bank owned apps, websites, company names, and product names are trademarks or registered trademarks of their respective owners. Their mention does not imply any affiliation with or endorsement by Armed Forces Bank of them or their products and services. They are merely used as examples of the many available apps, companies, and websites that offer similar services. Before using any app or website, you should carefully review the terms of use, data collection, and privacy policy. Apps may have an initial cost or in-application purchase features. This information is general in nature and is not intended to be legal, tax, or financial advice. Although Armed Forces Bank believes this information to be accurate, it cannot ensure that it could change. Statements or opinions of individuals referenced herein are their own, not Armed Forces Bank. Consult an appropriate professional concerning your specific situation and respective governing bodies for applicable laws, such as irs.gov for current tax law. Armed Forces Bank, the Armed Forces Bank logo, and the Militarily Speaking logo are registered trademarks of Armed Forces Bank.